Can you imagine someone giving up a palace to live under a tree? Sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly what Siddhartha Gautama did, the prince who walked away from a life of luxury to become the Buddha. His story flips everything we've ever been told about success and happiness. But what if real wealth is found in letting go? Get ready to dive into the powerful journey of a man who found true peace by giving up everything. They say that on a calm night in Lumbini, Queen Maya had a vivid dream. A white elephant with 6 tusks entered her side, filling her with an overwhelming sense of peace. Wise men interpreted this dream as a sign an extraordinary soul was about to be born. When Siddhartha came into the world, legend has it that flowers bloomed in his path, and the earth itself trembled in silence. He took 7 steps right after touching the ground and pointing to the sky and the earth. He said, "I am the highest in the world." This wasn't just a birth, it was the arrival of a guiding light for all humanity. His father, King Suddhodana, was given a powerful prophecy. His son would either become a great emperor or a spiritual master who would free countless souls. Terrified of the second option, the king did everything he could to block that destiny. He raised Siddhartha in total isolation, surrounded by comfort and shielded from even the slightest trace of suffering. The young prince lived in 3 lavish palaces, one for each season, filled with music, parties, and beautiful gardens, never once seeing old age, sickness, or death. It was a golden prison disguised as paradise. Still, even with all that luxury, something didn't sit right with the young prince. There was an emptiness behind all the celebration, a silent question that echoed through every moment. As he grew older, Siddhartha married the lovely Yasodhara and had a son, Rahula. But behind the smile, there was a flicker of restlessness, a calling no palace wall could silence. And that stirring inside him would eventually push him to look beyond those walls, searching for what really lay outside that perfect life. From day one, King Suddhodana had a crystal clear plan: make sure Siddhartha never saw the pain of the world. He gave his son the best education imaginable: arts, philosophy, warfare, politics, everything a ruler needed. But every teacher was strictly told to avoid any talk of suffering or letting go. Siddhartha learned how to win battles and conquer kingdoms, but not a word about how temporary life really is. The wisdom he got was broad, but incomplete, like reading a book with the last few pages missing. Inside the palace walls, no servant was allowed to show signs of aging, sickness, or sadness. Beauty was kept up at all costs. Siddhartha never even saw the change of seasons. When winter came, he was moved to the winter palace. When the gardens bloomed, he was taken to the palace of spring. Everything was carefully staged to feel timeless. Like a bird in a golden cage, he lived surrounded by life's pleasures, completely unaware of what existed outside the bubble built around him. Time passed, and on the surface, Siddhartha seemed to be living exactly the life his father had planned. Married to Yasodhara, father to Rahula, and beloved by everyone, the prince's life looked picture perfect. But beneath the parties and celebrations, a quiet restlessness started to grow. It was like his soul knew something crucial was being kept from him. And then one day, the inevitable happened. He asked to leave the palace walls. The king hesitated, but destiny had already started whispering in the silent halls of the prince's mind. It was on one of those rare outings that the golden curtain finally dropped from Siddhartha's eyes. He was used to seeing only youth and joy, but now, beyond the palace gates, he witnessed something that shook him to the core. An old man, hunched over, struggling to walk. "What's that?" he asked the charioteer. "That's old age, my lord. It comes for all of us." The perfect world he had known began to crack. For the first time, he realized not even the most powerful could escape decline. The next day, he returned to the streets. This time, he saw a man severely ill, coughing blood, his body weakened and frail. The shock hit even harder. "And this?" he asked, trying to process what life had kept hidden from him. "That's illness, sir. It can happen to anyone." Siddhartha said nothing. The palace gardens now felt like a stage built to distract him. His soul began to fill with questions no general or priest had ever prepared him to answer. On his third outing, the final blow came. He saw a dead body being carried to a funeral pyre. Calmly, the charioteer explained the truth. That's everyone's fate. Death. Siddhartha stood frozen. In just 3 trips outside the palace, he had seen what his entire life had kept from him. The world he thought was solid turned out to be fragile, fleeting, painful. And then came the 4th vision, a wandering monk with a peaceful face, walking with nothing but simplicity. "Who's he?" Siddhartha asked. "Someone in search of truth." And right then, for the first time, a new path opened up before him. The restlessness inside Siddhartha grew like a silent storm. Back at the palace, even with all the luxury and the loving presence of his wife and son, he could no longer ignore what he had seen. The images of aging, sickness, and death haunted him night after night. Everything that once brought him joy now felt empty. And then one early morning, while everyone slept, Siddhartha made the decision that would change his life and the course of human history. He took off his royal robes, kissed his sleeping son gently, and walked away without looking back. He cut off his hair, put on simple clothes, and set out into the world as a wandering seeker, looking for spiritual teachers who might answer his deepest questions. For years, he studied with the best Alara Kalama, Adhika Remapada, learning advanced techniques of deep meditation and exploring heightened states of consciousness. But even when he reached subtle levels of peace, Siddhartha realized it still wasn't ultimate freedom. That calm was temporary, and suffering always returned. Something was missing, something that kept slipping through his fingers like sand. That's when it hit him. The truth couldn't be found just by copying teachers or collecting spiritual techniques. He had to go deeper, break through the limits of the mind, of tradition, even of spiritual pride. His search became solitary, silent, and intense. No longer a student following formulas, he became a human being stripped bare, standing face to face with the mystery of life itself. Driven by a fierce desire to understand the root of suffering, Siddhartha decided to let go of everything, even the structure of practice itself, and take an even more extreme path. He joined a group of ascetics who believed that liberation could only come by completely denying the body. He fasted for days, surviving on a single grain of rice, barely breathing, barely moving. His body wasted away, skin clinging to bone. He'd sit for hours by the banks of the Naranjara River, meditating even when he could hardly stay upright. The pain was unbearable, the weakness overwhelming, but his mind stayed locked in, still chasing the truth hidden beyond the suffering. But the deeper he sank into asceticism, the more clouded his awareness became. Denying his body didn't bring him freedom, it brought him closer to death. Then, barely conscious, he overheard a musician speaking to his student by the river. "If you tighten the string too much, it'll snap. If it's too loose, it won't play." That simple line struck him like a bolt of lightning. He suddenly understood. The path to liberation wasn't in extreme denial or indulgence, it was in balance. With that clarity, Siddhartha accepted a bowl of sweet rice offered by Suyata, a village girl. His former companions abandoned him, calling him weak for giving in to pleasure, but deep down, he knew this was the real beginning. Nourished, steady, and aware, he sat beneath a tree and made a vow. He would not rise until he had fully understood the root of suffering. And it was under that tree, later known as the Bodhi tree, that the greatest revelation of his life was about to unfold. With his body renewed and his spirit aligned, Siddhartha sat beneath the sacred fig tree, determined to break through the veil of ignorance. It was a full moon night, and the air felt frozen in time. He crossed his legs, straightened his spine, and made a deep vow. I will not rise until I've reached liberation. It said the unseen world stirred in response. The forces of illusion, personified by Mara, rose up to shake him. Storms, seductive visions, fear, doubt. But Siddhartha didn't flinch. He sat still, like a mountain watching the wind pass by. Mara's final attack was the hardest. Doubt. Who gave you the right to seek such enlightenment? He whispered. In that moment, Siddhartha reached down and touched the earth with his fingertips, as if calling on existence itself to bear witness. And the earth answered. They say it trembled gently, acknowledging the purity of his quest. That night, he moved beyond the deepest layers of the mind, saw all his past lives, understood the nature of karma, and finally broke the cycle of suffering. He awoke. He became the Buddha, the Enlightened One. Dawn found him in silence, a soft glow in his eyes that didn't come from the world around him. The Four Noble Truths rose in his mind like unshakable pillars. Suffering exists. There's a cause behind it. It can come to an end. And there's a path that leads there. The Noble Eightfold Path was his answer. But for a moment, he hesitated. Was the world even ready to hear this? Would anyone truly understand? And then the gods, so the stories say, bowed before him, begging him to share what he had discovered. After reaching enlightenment, the Buddha stayed silent for days, not out of doubt, but deep reflection. What he had realized was so profound, so subtle, that it felt impossible to put into words. But then he saw clearly. There were people whose minds were ready like seeds planted in the right soil. All they needed was the right breath of truth to blossom. So, he chose to teach. His first talk was in Deer Park, Sarnath, to 5 former ascetic companions who had once walked away from him. There, he revealed the Four Noble Truths for the first time. These 5 men became his first disciples, and the Sangha, the community of seekers, was born. Over time, hundreds gathered to hear this man with a calm voice, peaceful eyes, and a gentle step. The Buddha didn't promise miracles, and he didn't ask for worship. His message was simple and freeing. Everything is impermanent, suffering has a cause, and freedom is possible here, in this life. The Eightfold Path: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration became the map to liberation. Wherever he went, the Buddha awakened hearts. Rich or poor, kings or farmers, men or women, everyone who heard his words felt something click deep inside. He wasn't preaching a religion. He was offering a way of seeing. He didn't want blind followers, he wanted awakened beings. And so, without weapons, without war, using only his presence and his words, Siddhartha Gautama transformed kingdoms and touched countless lives. But even the greatest masters must one day say goodbye to their physical form. Time passed, and by the time the Buddha turned 80, he knew his mission on earth was coming to an end. His body, though peaceful, no longer held the strength of youth. On his final journey, he walked through villages and forests, still teaching with the same gentle simplicity as always. In Kushinagar, after accepting a meal offered by a devoted follower, he felt the moment had arrived. He lay down on his side beneath 2 sal trees that bloomed out of season, as if nature itself was bowing in farewell to the Enlightened One. His disciples gathered around him in silence, eyes filled with tears, hearts heavy with reverence. Yet the Buddha remained clear, undisturbed by emotion. He spoke his final words with both strength and tenderness. All things that are made will fall apart. Strive with diligence. Then he entered a deep meditation, and slowly his breath came to a stillness. Siddhartha Gautama, the man who had awakened, reached parinirvana, the final nirvana, beyond the cycles of birth and death. His relics were divided among kings and kingdoms, and sacred stupas were built to house them. But more powerful than any object was the teaching he left behind, the real possibility of breaking free from suffering. Buddhism spread throughout Asia, taking many forms, yet all carried the essence of that calm, steady gaze that had seen the truth. And even thousands of years later, Siddhartha's journey continues to inspire millions to seek their own awakening. Now that you've heard the incredible journey of Siddhartha Gautama, let me ask you, what prisons are you still holding on to? What kind of freedom are you truly looking for? Don't wait to take that first step. Hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join me on this journey of transformation. After all, your own enlightenment might be closer than you think.